scared, brother.
They don't.
Goddamn
Welcome
free,
you
right?
with open arms, man.
Yeah, man.
You need some mulch? We got a discount on mulch.
We got
today.
some discounts on mulch, man. Okay, man. Look, man. I'm happy you went to garden center.
Thanks, man.
Happy you living a real last life going to garden center.
It's all right.
Having, get buying plants. Not for weed, though. No fertilizer for weed.
Oh, not yet. Maybe one day.
You're not
Not
about
if-
that life.
Not
You
if
know, you don't have
Biden's
the-
elected. All right.
You don't have the nerve to grow weed. I can look at you and tell you couldn't
would.
handle yourself right.
I would.
You'd be like you'd be so scared.
No, man. I used to be the doobie dooby pothead stoner of the year. award.
Okay, let's move on. I don't want to get into this fairy tale ass life. All right, what are we doing
Oh,
today,
man.
Henry?
That was we're looking at Indira Gandhi,
Okay.
Prime Minister of India up until 1984, leader of one of the quote unquote non-aligned nations. But we're gonna see how true that is going forward.
Okay, and this for all the dumb people and our I'm gonna call them dumb people. We'll call our dumb friends
Our dumb
who
friends.
joined us, and we're gonna look at the analytics on this, and we're gonna see when you logged off after
Yep.
I tell you this is not about Gandhi.
Nope.
This is
This
about
is-
a
yep.
different person. You know what I mean?
Just somebody from Gujarat. Really.
Somebody from
she's not
Gujarat.
from Gujarat, but she married somebody from
married
Gujarat.
somebody, yeah.
And that
Yeah.
name is common enough to where her name is also Gandhi. So, we got you, bitch. You got clickbaited.
Yeah,
here
you got
you are.
clickbait. This is clickbait. This is
Might
how
as well
clickbait
stay,
works.
right? Here we go.
Okay.
All right. So she's born November 19th of 1917. Her birth name is Indira Priyadarshini Nehru. Was born in Allahabad, which is kind of like north central India, to Kamala Nehru and Jawaharlal Nehru, who was like this super famous populist leader of India, helped like guide India into independence. And then in the background of her birth, you have in her like early childhood, you have the independence movement is in full swing. We're rebelling against the British. Jawaharlal, her father, is kind of like the political end of Indian independence, and also his father Motilal is also like a pivotal figure. But
gonna
then on
tell
the
you-
spiritual side, you have Mahatma Gandhi. So it's not that he's like not in her life at all. He's just not related to her. So her early childhood, again, she's like immersed in the independence movement. She's like not even 2 years old. I think in April of 1919 is when the Amritsar massacre happens, which is like 379 people, I think the figure is, die in like a public square in Amritsar. They're like peacefully protesting, saying like, hey, we want independence. And Great Britain is like, kill these dudes. And they fire and all these people. It's not good. So they're advocating the non-cooperation movement, just boycotting British institutions, like don't attend their schools, don't show up on your court dates, none of that shit. Boycott Western goods, don't buy any of the goods that they're flooding our country with. And then again, her father, Jawaharlal, and her grandfather, Motilal, are like the political angle, and then Mahatma Gandhi is like, close to Jawaharlal and Motilal, and he's kind of the spiritual end. They're all like in and out of jail throughout her early childhood. I kind of like this. The British have a nickname for that triumvirate.
Yeah.
They call them the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And that's solid,
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're Christian and you got one Bible, you got one. That's the only book you got. You just start referencing it all the time.
all the time.
You know what I mean?
I don't even know how religious the people who were ruling India were, because
Or they're Christian. They're like, they're saying
I mean, they're like
on the weekend,
Christian,
on the Sunday, on
on
Sunday,
fucking-
I'm in that
yeah.
thing. On Mondays, I'm probably like in Mumbai, like in the slums at a fucking. I don't know. I don't know much about it.
I don't know what you do in Mumbai
Yeah,
slums. That's
yeah.
that's the thing. I don't assume they were doing anything good.
Regular
You
slum
know,
activity. You know what I mean?
I don't want to say slumming it up. I feel like that's
Yeah, it does feel racist.
a little bit.
I feel like we're gonna cross a lot of racial lines, and we're just gonna apologize up front.
We're
You
just
know
gonna
what I mean?
roll with the punches. you
Yeah,
know?
no, Henry,
Do
you
what
should
you
try
can.
harder than me because I get more leeway than you
Okay,
do. But let's move on.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Even though I did the research, that's
Look here, yeah. No, I know you will make some racist statements. I know you will.
So Indira, she receives a Western education. She goes to like a bunch of private schools in Switzerland. She learns French. She's like exposed to different cultures at an early age. But more specifically, she goes to Europe in the first place because her mother has tuberculosis, and they're basically chasing the doctors. They've got better doctors in Europe. And like an Indian physician advises that they go to Europe in order for Kamala to receive treatment. And then while she's there, she's kind of popping back and forth between 1927 and 1934. Her father is continuing to work for the independence movement. And her father, Jawaharlal, was kind of a radical compared to Mahatma Gandhi and Motilal, to where he was pushing for complete independence. While Gandhi and Motilal, they were more like, we will be a dominion of the British Empire. You guys can still have some say in what we do over here. We don't need to sever the ties completely. And it kind of reminds me of what Lumumba wanted with the Congo, at least in the initial phases. Whereas Jawaharlal's like, no, complete severance.
And I think that it's, especially they were Brahmins, right?
Yes.
So like that, having that preferred status, maybe a little bit of a higher class or caste status in this aspect. Yeah. Definitely maybe lends to like a more comfortable feeling with the current arrangements. You know what I mean? Rather than like fucking just like working in some, I don't know, like a diamond mine in India or some type of like mineral mine or like rice field. And then like, you know what I mean? Where you have a much more agitated response to a lot of things.
We can preserve the status quo. We can keep it what it is. But I'm sure Motilal's angle was more class based than Gandhi's was, because Gandhi was also pretty
wealthy, from my understanding.
I don't know. I wasn't gonna say wealthy. I was gonna say non-class minded. Like he was against treating the untouchables, like the bottom rung, as untouchables. He was, because he kind of had that spiritual angle to him, to where he was like, we're all equal, really, when it comes down to it.
Out of a complete ignorance on Gandhi.
Oh, for sure. So talking out of my ass on this.
Yeah, no, I don't know much about Gandhi. But from my understanding, he like was a lawyer and all that type of stuff, and maybe maybe a comfortable enough life with British rule. Yeah, but not the rights and all that type of stuff and all the things that the equality that he wants. Yeah, to where he might think of independence as maybe not necessary as for somebody who's like gotten their neck stepped on by the fucking British boot. Then that person might think differently than Gandhi if they were like rice worker or some rice laborer.
For sure. But also like these are the guys at the forefront. It tends to be, you've got these, even looking at Castro, looking at Lumumba, and looking at just the Brahmins. Yeah. They're all the highest class. They're all the most educated, but they're all still coming into this new world. Like, we do need to build a new order, but also keep the top crust in mind.
Petty bourgeois, man. The fucking petty bourgeois.
It's birthed at the upper rungs and then it trickles down. I don't know.
Always wow. Don't do that. Don't cross pollinate. I don't know. Don't cross pollinate ideologies like that. That's disgusting.
The parallel is not exact. That's definitely a non sequitur, but still. Indira, she gets her start in politics at a very young age. I think she's like 12 when she is put in charge of this thing called the Vinar Sena, which is the Monkey Brigade. And it's like a group of children who are active in the independence movement. And I think she like leads a parade of like 15,000 children at one point. And the Vinar Sena, I guess they're most valued for is their intelligence role. And so you'd have a bunch of kids hanging outside of this British police station, and they would overhear the British police officers saying like, oh yeah, we're about to arrest Motilal and Jawaharlal in Delhi. It's going to happen. And then the kids who are just fucking jumping rope or whatever, just playing basically, would go and inform on them because, police never suspect children. And then they would go and they would tell top leaders of the Indian National Congress like, hey, they're coming for you, hide. And they would.
Two thoughts on that. One, that seems like a very inconsistent spy ring operation. You know what I mean? Just like kids making up.
Swayed.
And then I saw a dragon. No, really? Did you saw a dragon, Tommy? No, it was a dragon hanging out with the what? the fuck,
Stop
Tommy?
bullshitting me, Tommy.
Stop
We
bullshitting
talked
me.
about this, all right?
And
You're not going to
second
get your goddamn licorice if you keep on lying to me, all right?
Second of all, I just, wish that, you know what I mean? I wish police weren't suspective of kids here also.
That'd be
Particularly
cool.
black kids.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
hey,
Tamir Rice.
You guys get off. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's serious. Now it's not a fucking joke, is it?
No.
Yeah, keep moving. Keep doing your little comedy podcast when there's real shit happening out in the fucking world.
It's all. It's bad out there. It's bad out there. Man.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
It's always been bad though.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Jawaharlal and Gandhi, meanwhile, they're still in and out of prison. And Jawaharlal, he's got kind of like an ace up the sleeve because his wife is sick. And so periodically he's released because he's like, I might be in prison. My wife is dying, though. Can I go visit my dying wife, maybe? And the British authorities, if anything you can say about them, they're goddamn polite, right? They're like, all right, go see
They're not polite.
Go
though.
see your dying wife.
They probably had tea.
At the very
they
least.
probably had tea, and they were just like, we don't want to watch you during tea. Go fucking do your thing, then come back after tea. It's a whole
little
thing.
pinky up sipping, June 1935, Kamala and Indira go back to Europe. Kamala's receiving treatment in Badenweiler, Germany. And Indira, she's kind of popping around Europe, traveling particularly around Germany. And, mid-1930s, she's kind of noticing shit's getting a little weird over here in Germany. It's getting a little, little scary to be around. She goes to a museum at one point, and there's like basically a Why the Jews Are Evil gallery opening at this museum, and she's like, oh, I need to I should go home.
You should probably dip. Yeah, I
should get out of Germany,
Yeah, no, the Germany that's such an interesting time in history, like Germany before World War II.
Yep.
Because they just believe it's just interesting to see how an entire population of people just was like, and that's how we feel.
Yep.
It was like, what?
Now that we're all comfortable, now that we're all cool with saying what we actually believe for years now.
Yeah.
Two drinks deep or whatever. Yeah. Let's air it all out. Fuck it.
Completely sober. Mm-hmm. Just yelling it.
And another thing,
with their hands up, raged to asking to say it. Mm-hmm. It's a lot.
Please, may I have the talking pillow? Come on,
the talking pillow. What's a talking pillow?
I just think it'd be funny if
is that an improv reference?
Talking pillows. No, it's talking pillows. Pretty broad. Is that
like a therapy reference? Because I've never been a therapy.
Yeah, they're Breaking Bad. They do the I have the talking pillow.
I've never heard of.
It's a thing. It's out. Oh,
it
well.
It doesn't sound like it's a thing. It sounds like you made it up. It sounds like some rich white stuff. Therapy.
Yeah,
niggas got pillows to just give around to people. That type of bullshit.
Throw pillows with the little home sweet home embroidered on them. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So early adulthood, when she's 18 to 25, 1935 to 1942, she studies at Oxford for a little bit, but she can't manage to pass her Latin exams because I guess it's always the foreign credit that'll get you.
Yeah.
Her mom dies in February of 1936. She grieves for a little bit, and she's kind of popping back and forth between Europe and India. And every time she wants to go to Europe, her dad's like, "Yo, should you really be going to Europe right now? It's the late 30s. Shit's looking bad over there. What are you doing?" But she's got her booze over there. There's this courting between her and this guy Feroze Gandhi, who's from Gujarat, and Gandhi is just a common enough name in Gujarat. And he's also a young independence leader. He had been lobbying for Indian independence in Great Britain. He studied at the London School of Economics for a little bit, but then he drops out. And they after the outbreak of World War II, Indira and Feroze, they get a place in London together and actually survive some air raids and are doing war work and all that stuff. And this, Feroze had already already proposed a couple of times, and the family knows about this. But the first times they rejected is because it's oh, she's too young. But they were kind of bullshitting because again, the Nehru family, Brahmins, and Feroze is a Parsi who's a Persian. And I think Parsis believe in Zoroastrianism, or they're Zoroastrians. And so I don't even know where they register on or in the caste system, but it's lower. And that's why it's such a hard sell to her family, is because he's lower on the caste system. He doesn't even believe in in Hinduism. He's a Zoroastrian. Like,
I've seen this. I've seen this in South Asian media a lot, where people kind of will judge people, like aunts and aunties or uncles will judge people off like their last name and what that means in India, and like what that caste is in India, because the caste system, I mean, it's just like it was classed, just an ingrained class of people, like and it's kind of based on like roles within society, and that's long lasting, you know what I mean, and
centuries, like
there've been there've been plenty of people that like I would have loved to date it, and then they just didn't want to date me because I wasn't of the right caste.
Man,
that's
have
what
you
I tell
heard
myself? That's what I tell myself.
The right
that they just. That's why they didn't text me back, because I wasn't the right caste.
No BMWs. Have you heard that?
Okay, dude. What are you doing right now? What is no BM? No
BMWs. It's like a. I don't want to say a broadly an Indian code, but like I heard from
how many Indians?
An Indian American girl I was interested in told me about like no BMWs, which is like no blacks, Mexicans, or whites, and it's like a thing
that's obviously bullshit, because they will get with the white dude and black dudes.
Yeah, I mean, I also like work with a guy.
This is
what she told me. All right, this is what she told me.
Yo, she just made up a whole thing for you. She was just like, "Yo, I gotta come up with a whole thing," and then she was creative and she drew it out on her board. Like I have here. She's like, how the fuck to get Henry to stay the fuck away from me? That might be true, but like I've never heard them be like, yeah, no, I have an acronym.
We all have an acronym. It's a unified. I don't know if it is. Maybe she was just trying to get me to stop.
I think you got duped.
You think I got duped?
I think you should move on, because you're
perhaps
happily coupled now. Move on.
There we go. March 26th. The family ultimately fails. The denial of the family. The how do you say?
The
rejection
the restrictions of the family.
The concerns, restrictions of the family. They get married on March 26th in 1942. Indira and Feroze. They have their honeymoon in Kashmir, and they get a place in Allahabad. The next phase, 1942 to 1947, Jawaharlal, Feroze, and Indira, who is now Indira Gandhi, and she's Indira Nehru Gandhi because she moved around her last name into her middle name. They're all agitating for independence, like full-fledged, and they're all in and out of jail because of it. You've got the Indian National Congress, or the INC, which is not an actual Congress, like a legislative body. It's the name of the party that is pro-independence. So just be clear, INC, Indian National Congress, that's a political party, not a legislative body.
Because now they have the BJP, and they still have the National Congress, which is still, that's the party of Gandhi. Yeah. And then now they have the BJP also, which BJP is like basically like a Hindu nationalist party at this point. Okay. Yeah.
Is it a little right wingy, or?
Yo, it's very right wingy. It's Modi's party.
Yeah.
Modi. Yeah, but if you ever have like a weekend where you're just like, man, or like a week where you're like, it's like, I don't have anything to do, and it's during like the Indian, like go watch those videos of their elections on YouTube. It is amazing. Their political party rallies, amazing. Like the BJP shit is amazing, and I mean not amazing in like what they're espousing is good, just amazing in like
the showmanship,
the amount of people, the like coordination.
They have like pretty, t-shirt cannons and shit.
No, it's more just like a couple of 100,000 people.
Damn.
Damn. If I remember correctly, I just remember the BJP shit being like, Jesus Christ.
That's cool. So the INC, they're the main party liaisoning with the British government as to the shape of India once it is independent. And then I think after World War II to 1947, you've got the Constituent Assembly, which is basically like the Indian Constitutional Convention. Yeah. They're writing up the Constitution. Excuse me. And from what I understand, they have a stronger executive and a weaker judiciary. Yeah. Reason being, you're trying to build up a new nation and unify all these disparate groups. You've got the history of the caste system kind of reinforcing this idea of like class separation and segregation and all this shit, and it's like run back fucking centuries. It's entrenched, but you want to preserve the idea of India by giving the federal government executive powers to preserve that union, even if it comes at the cost of like the rights of the states or the rights of the citizens. You're a relatively new nation, and you're a conglomerate. You're trying to hold together all these groups. You're going to make sure that the executive has the means to do so. So Indira, same time period, she gives birth to 2 children with Feroze, Rajiva in 1944, and then the second son, Sanjay, in 1946. And Feroze, he's working in Lucknow, which is south of Allahabad, as the director of the National Herald, which is this newspaper. Jawaharlal got him the job. He's not very good at it. He's like also fooling around with other women at this time. And so like Indira is in Delhi while Feroze is in Lucknow. And Indira is playing hostess for her father, and like their marriage is kind of on the rocks. So until August 15th of 1947, you get official Indian independence, and then shortly after that, the next period is partition. From August to October of 1947, you have the Menon Plan, which is this guy like Krishna Menon and Jawaharlal Nehru submit this plan for how like the modern shape of India should be, and Pakistan should be its own state. You've got East and West Pakistan, and so like the Muslim communities in India who know about partition are escaping to what's known as Pakistan today, and then the Sikh and Hindu communities that are in Pakistan who know about what the shape of the modern nations is are fleeing into India. And so you've just got mayhem in the cross section whenever they're overlapping. Like in particularly in Lahore, there's a story of like riots in Lahore. Yeah. That's right. They like cut the water lines for Sikh and Hindu families, and then once those families exit their homes in order to get water, they're like butchered by Muslim mobs. And it happened both ways. I don't mean to suggest that it was one-sided at all, but like absolute mayhem's going on, right? It's supposed to be one of the largest migrations in human history, is the period after partition.
Yeah.
On October 22nd of 47, things get worse when 3,000 Pakistanis cross into Kashmir, and they do a march on Srinagar, which is the capital of Kashmir, supposedly to help an internal uprising against this guy Hari Singh, who is the Hindu ruler of a majority Muslim population. And this is where you get kind of like the dual claims, to where it's like, okay, we've got this Hindu ruler, but most of the people here are Muslim, right? And so he appeals to India for aid. They send in some troops, and fighting continues for about a year until the UN puts in place a ceasefire on January 1st of 1949. Next period, real quick, you got January 30th of 48. Gandhi's assassinated by a Hindu fundamentalist who basically blamed him for partition and felt betrayed that Gandhi was like taking the side of the Muslims, which he really wasn't. He was just kind of a pacifist more than anything. But Gandhi dies. Period of national grieving. 48 to 51, Indira's trying to repatch her marriage. It's not really working. She's still playing hostess for her father in New Delhi. And then Indira kind of gets her start as like a sideline role in politics from 1951 to May of 1952. You have India's first general elections, and she's busy campaigning for Feroze and Jawaharlal and just for the INC generally, right?
Yeah.
And she's still also playing the role of like neighbor's hostess, but also still doing some social and cultural work. And so she's got a connection to the people.
You know, it has to suck to just be like somebody's like the public face, like, oh, we're having a good marriage. We're having a good marriage. It's not a bad thing. He's not cheating on a lot of people. He's not the Bill Clinton of India. It's not. India. It's no, not. This is not. This is not. This is not. I'm not Hillary Clinton. Like I'm not.
I don't. So what if we're living in two separate cities? Yeah, like it's plenty normal for couples nowadays.
Why do I have on a pantsuit? Where did this pantsuit come from? There's so much. There's so many things going on.
It's a little, and then like his affairs get more and more renowned because he starts sleeping with like high society women, and it kind of becomes.
He starts coming on people's dresses.
Oh,
in
hell
the office.
Yeah! Just like
in the office.
I don't care anymore, you know. Yeah, but it's like the more she rejects him for having the affairs, the more affairs he ultimately has because he feels rejected and he needs to fill, literally.
No, he's a piece of shit.
You know?
No, he's a piece. No, he's a piece
sure.
of shit. He's a piece of shit. He's cheating on a girl. Like,
Indira.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's bad. You don't cheat. You don't do that. You don't do that.
Yeah, Henry.
53 to 55. I ain't gonna do it. I'm all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Keep moving, Henry.
We're okay.
Keep moving before you're on the street. All right.
Oh God. 1953 to 1955, Indira, she's traveling around Europe with Jawaharlal. She goes to the Soviet Union at one point. And Feroze, in the background, he makes a name for himself speaking out against government corruption. Specifically, there's collusion between like the public sector and the private sector. In the insurance agency, he like takes down some, I think a public guy, like a government figure. And he's seen as like a champion of the people, you know, because he's anti-corruption. In April of 1955, Jawaharlal and Indira are in Bandung, Indonesia, for the Bandung conference, and they hook up with. Yeah, man, not aligned. They see
guys.
Like Nasser, our guy Sukarno, and Chow En Lai.
Yeah.
Who, interestingly enough, he has like his plane explode. His decoy plane explodes. He gets on the other one, and the one that they thought he was getting on blows the fuck up. So somebody wanted him dead.
Yeah, and a lot of people want Chow En Lai dead because he was just so goddamn good looking.
It's so sexy, man.
So,
just too,
I didn't say
too good looking. It
sexy
hurts,
is a different word than good looking, and now you made it. You made it very.
You like my body. You know?
I will quit this podcast. Move on.
You haven't threatened to in a while, man.
I know. I've been trying to like keep it together for the podcast, but like I will quit this podcast if you think sing again.
1955 to 57, Indira re-enters politics by working for the INC. She's on 2 different committees, and at this point, like her marriage, I don't want to say it's over. It's not great, but her loyalties to her husband are less than what they were. Kids are away in Switzerland. She's got time to be like, no, my primary loyalty is more or less to my father, at least at the present moment, and he doesn't take up all my time, so I can do my own thing, right?
Yeah.
And then again, Feroze is more open with his affairs, but that doesn't really stop him because in February 1958, Feroze gives a speech decrying fraudulent activities between this government-owned life insurance corps and this guy, Haridas Mundra. To our Mundra, he's often filling the INC coffers. He gets into debt, and he basically convinces some people in Nehru's finance ministry to bail him out. And that's what they do. And because of Feroze, Nehru is forced to set up a commission to investigate the quote-unquote Mundra scandal. And it results in the resignation of the finance minister. And so now Feroze, he explodes nationally because he took down a guy in the cabinet. You know, that's huge. Like, he should be in the cabinet, shouldn't he? Right? It's this champion of the people. February 1959, Indira is elected president of the INC. So she doesn't really have an official government role quite yet, but she is working for the party and like a prominent figure there.
Well, so she was elected to be to the president of INC just because she was like, they liked her? Or like why? Or because she's the wife of Feroze?
A lot of that. Okay. I'm sure it's a confluence to where she's daughter of Jawaharlal Nehru, who is prime minister, just beloved by the people. So she's been a public figure for most of her life. So there is like hella nepotism.
Yeah.
Going
I forgot about that.
And she's gonna come into her own later, but she has help. Like let's be real. During her acceptance speech, she quotes a popular Hindi film song. She says, quote, "We are the woman of India. Don't imagine us as flower maidens. We are the sparks in the fire."
This is the worst house song I've ever heard in my life.
It probably sounds better in Hindi, I want to say.
I mean, I can just see it with that like a house beat over it. Just a replaceable white woman singing it in like a crop top in 2012. You remember those years?
Yep. Yeah, the bedazzled sunglasses inside.
Not bedazzled.
Not bedazzled sunglasses.
Not bedazzled.
You don't think so?
No.
I'm sure that's what I wore. I don't know what you're talking about.
Your clothing choices are crazy.
I don't have any choices anymore. I don't wear pants anymore. I haven't worn pants in a while.
Okay, we're losing listeners by the I don't wear pants talk.
So in April of 1959, one of the first things she does as INC president is she's speaking out against the Communist Party in Kerala, which is the state in the southern tip of India. They try to pass these land reform bills and these bills that would like raise teachers' pay.
Yeah.
And she's like, hell no, we're not doing that. You guys that are advocating for these reforms, y'all are Chinese agents. Mao put you up to this, all right? This is bullshit. Like, no, we're not doing this.
You just want teachers to get paid more. You're a communist.
You're a communist.
You're a goddamn communist dude. I just want teachers to get paid more. You're sent from Mao.
I just don't want to starve. I just want to make enough to live. You're a goddamn communist.
You're a socialist. Right? You're a Marxist.
Yep.
Evil person.
You know what I get paid a year? Are you paid what I'm paid a year?
Yeah.
I don't care. No, I have the
you're a communist.
You're a communist.
You're a bad person for asking to be paid a living wage.
To be paid a reasonable wage.
Yeah.
All right, that's bullshit. We're not having it. And so in July of 1959, Nehru dismisses the democratically elected, mind you, communist government of Kerala, and he puts it under state control. And he's allowed to do this by the Constitution because, again, they have that strong executive. And it's kind of suspected that Indira pushed Nehru to do so, but the authors of one of the books I read, Catherine Frank is her name, claims that she did not. I don't know if I believe that, but it still reveals a preference, and that is order over democracy. Yeah. And we're going to talk about that a lot more in the second part. So Indira doesn't really last as president of the INC. She resigns in February of 1960, and then September of that year, Feroze suffers a fatal heart attack, and he dies.
Fucking.
While he's fucking. Yes.
Of course. While came. You know, I came, and then my heart came.
And then my heart stopped.
Yeah,
it was
the heart came.
A robust orgasm that my heart
Why
short.
would
my
you
heart
ever
exploded.
put the word robust, next to orgasm? You just made sex uncomfortable for all of us. What? Okay.
Oh, my dirty talk is polysyllabic, rather.
I just want to. Is there any way I can kill myself right now? If I stick this in I throw it with my leg back.
If you eat the marker, I'm sure you'll die.
If I fucking get it and I'll just choke on my throat.
You could just go outside and get corona. You know.
No. I'd rather die like a man dies by suicide.
Fair enough. Okay.
Have the balls to kill yourself. All right.
There you go, man. There you go. So November of 1961. Jawaharlal and Indira go on their second state trip to the United States to visit the dynamic, young, fresh, new Kennedys.
Yeah.
And really, Nehru is not having it. Like, they don't really get along to where, JFK keeps trying to be all charming and crack his little JFK jokes. And Nehru's like, nah, man, I don't like you. This is bullshit. Kennedy described it as the, quote, worst head of state visit he ever had. But he supposedly said the same thing about his Vienna summit with Khrushchev. So something tells me JFK was a little bit of a dramatist.
Of course, with that red hair, completely drama queen. Mm-hmm. Second of all, he is a white dude from Boston, so he might have just not liked South Asians. And just been
there's a high possibility of that as well. Jawaharlal and Indira. Indira Gandhi. It's Indira. That's what I said. Indira.
He's just doing incredibly racist, just comic material. JFK. Where JFK just keeps bringing up gas stations for some reason. Everybody's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, no, but it's like
I feel uncomfortable.
We're from.
I am the head of state. You understand? Don't you hit me with this fucking disrespect.
Incredibly racist.
Yeah.
JFK. Mm-hmm. asking
too comfortable JFK.
Just
what are you doing?
I mean, it's just about Circle K. What the? He's so stupid.
There's this one point where JFK is basically like, yeah, what do you think I should do about Vietnam?
Why is that your Boston accent?
I don't. Hey,
What is that accent?
so
Yo, if you're gonna
what
do
do
an
you
accent,
think I should do about Vietnam?
that is what is this old time? Is everybody in Boston?
I don't know how to
fucking
do.
dying from Parkinson's disease?
I don't know how to do. I do a much better Nixon.
No,
all right.
the Boston accent. It just imagine heroin or Oxycontin is just like on the streets.
At all times.
I don't really know how to do it either.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's
I don't know
a
how to
hard.
do it.
I got.
But if you're gonna do accents, you gotta know how to do them. Don't just come with the same. You're doing the same accent for like half the goddamn people on here.
Yeah, man. I'm a one-trick pony. I don't know what to tell you. So in 1962, the Indian government adopts the Ford Foundation's draft of the master plan for the rezoning/redevelopment of Delhi. And like the Ford Foundation is a private industry, but it does show that the U.S. did have a presence in India, so they're not exactly non-aligned. They're again just, and like Khrushchev built like a steel factory in India, so they're just kind of shopping around for the best offer. Whoever's going to help our nation the most, we'll take that. You know,
we have close to 1 billion people. Well, just anything you can give at any time, we'll take.
Oh, but are they happy they have close to 1 billion people?
We'll see. We'll see.
We will see. And the squatter settlements on quote unquote public property become illegal, and they're resettled, and they've got this master plan. We're going to talk more about that in part 2, but the roots are there, right? Next major thing that happens is in September of 1962, you've got the border war between China and India, and it's right around where Tibet meets Jammu/Kashmir meets India meets Pakistan.
Yeah.
And they passed this thing called the Defense of India Rules, which allows preliminary or preventative detention for Indians of Chinese descent. So we don't need a reason to detain you. The fact that you're Chinese is enough. We can arrest you, and there's no legal recourse for you.
And this is my American racism, and which is very interesting, is that I saw on Al Jazeera last year a guy who was Tibetan, but didn't live in Tibet, lived in New Delhi, and he was Asian, he was Chinese looking, kind of Tibetan looking, but he had like the New Delhi like Indian accent. And that was one of the most racist reactions I've ever had to something. And I'm telling you about that so you don't have that. And you don't look up that video and be like, yo, it's like, yo, peoples are peoples, dog, and they're all around the world.
Yeah, man.
You know
There's
I mean?
all sorts of mixed matches that occur, all sorts of
like,
overlapping cultural.
Don't call them mixed matches. Don't ever call them mixed matches again.
No, man, it's beautiful.
No, it's crazy.
It
Don't ever
it's
call
cool.
them mixed matches.
It's. I like it. You know, it's
first word for like mixed people I've ever heard. Like, yo, that mixed match over there. Yo, you're disgusting.
That's not how I meant it.
That's how it came out.
The overlapping of cultures
that's how it came out.
in unique forms, and we should celebrate those. You know, that's what I meant.
Yo, is that like a white talent? To just come up with slurs,
backpedaling.
No. Coming up with slurs just on accident. just be like,
maybe
mixed match over. Jesus Christ!
Out of my magician hat.
No, you got a
magician hats of slurs. So the war gets really bad in late October in 1962. China starts bringing in like their heavy artillery and their tanks, and India declares a state of emergency on the 22nd, and they start requesting arms from the West, specifically like Great Britain and the U.S. But then, abruptly, like as quick as the war started, it ends. November 21st of 62, China declares a ceasefire.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why this war happened, really. I'll be honest, I suspect you mentioned that they were like trying to build a road into Pakistan, because Pakistan is kind of like allied with China, or it's like increasingly allied with China.
From my understanding, it has to do with just China wants the control of some of these passes. Their like dispute now over their shit is a little bit different from the one that they were having then, because now it's more about the Belt and Road project. And then back then, sometimes I read about that and I didn't understand it all that well. I mean, look, Mao was wilding a lot of the times back then.
What do I feel like doing today?
He was fresh off the death of at least 24 to 36 million people, and he was just like, "Let's do more, let's do more of this." but
keep rolling the dice.
You got to keep rolling.
Keep pushing it. You know, you don't grow if you don't.
You never try.
You never know if you don't go. You never shine if you don't.
I will. I'm leaving. I'm literally getting up. I'm literally getting out of this fucking pod. I'm done with you. I'm done with you. I'm done. I'm just done. Let's start. This is the last episode of Hard Fight History.
You're here for it, you know?
No, this is the last one.
So summer of 1963, you've got general elections. INC loses some seats. Nehru is in his final years. And then May 27th of 64, Nehru dies of a stroke. You've got his public funeral, period of national grieving. Indira seeks into oppression because she's more isolated than she's ever been. Her husband's dead. Her father's dead. I think her children at this point are still away in public school. What is she to do, right? This guy, Lal Bahadur Shastri, maneuvers into the prime ministership, but he keeps deferring to Indira. And Indira ends up becoming Minister of Info and Broadcast. And she's kind of sent away from the state of power. Like, she goes to London on a state visit in October, and it's clear to her that Shastri wants the legitimacy of her name, but not much else, right? How she usurps him is in March of 65, there are these language riots in Madras, which is, again, I think it's adjacent to Kerala, if I'm not mistaken, again, in the southern tip. And they speak Tamil. And it's announced, Tamil?
Tamil, yeah.
Tamil, yeah. It's announced that Hindi is going to be the national language, and they're like, oh, hell no. Some people are, like, burning themselves publicly in protestation against this decree.
There's no national language of India. There's 22 languages.
No, hell no. They're trying to make it. They're trying to make it Hindi, but it's like so much of language is cultural identity, or there's so much cultural identity invested in some languages.
Of course, but also there's 22 languages in the country.
Yeah.
So there's just like there's no national language because there's 22 different fucking languages. Sorry, nigga. Like
no, it's not gonna happen. And so Shastri and this guy Kumaraswamy Kamaraj, who is an independence leader, I think from Tamil, and he's high up in the cabinet. They just want to wait it out. But Indira like hops on a plane and calms things down on her own accord without consulting Shastri and, quote, jumps over his head. Yeah. And then in September of that year, Indira brokers a ceasefire in Kashmir because there were still some leftover tensions, I guess, to where there was like Pakistan was trying to cause an AstroTurf uprising by like inciting the public to rebel, basically trying to do what the CIA did in Iran in Kashmir, only it didn't work out. But Indira's the one on the ground, and then Shastri comes in and he's like, oh, okay, now that you've laid the groundwork for the ceasefire, I think I'll take it from here. But it still endears herself to the people, right?
Yeah.
Next year, 1966, Indian government agrees to start incentivizing sterilization. Mainly vasectomies because they're cheaper and they're quick, right? And they would pay people X amount or give people X amount of like goods and stuff. But the unintentional, or maybe the intentional result is that like famines and droughts occur, and then the poor who have no other option would turn to sterilization as like a quick form to get cash or goods. And so it's a form of class warfare. And I just want to show that the seed is there in 1966, and it's something that resurges. And there's evidence to suggest that they do so under the advice of the Ford Foundation itself. If you want to look into it, the representative that they have is this guy, Douglas Ensminger, and he advocates population control and like incentivized sterilization. And we're going to see how this kind of like warps in the next episode.
Ensminger. What type of name is that?
German. Who else would be advocating for?
Yeah, who else?
Who's surprised?
Who else would be advocating? No, what you need to do.
What you need
to do is fucking is.
What you need
okay,
to do.
Why is your German accent like a Japanese accent.
You want me to go back to the one I did?
No,
before?
you can do more. You don't have to do 2 to 3 accents.
That's true. I gotta expand my repertoire.
Either you're the most equal person, you're all for equality, or you just are the most untalented hack.
Just untalented. So January 3rd of 1966, wrapping up, Prime Minister Shastri, he flies to Tashkent in modern Uzbekistan, which is then under the control of the Soviet Union, with for peace talks with Ayub Khan of Pakistan. And they're brokered by Kosygin, who is at this, I guess he's like an arm of Brezhnev, but he also like came up with Khrushchev. They agree to a settlement. And then boom, Shastri suffers another fatal heart attack on the 11th. And so the syndicate, which is like the old guard of Indian politics, they endorse Indira, and they're all convinced by Kamaraj that she's going to be their puppet. We really just need her name, but ultimately she's going to do what we say. The main detractor is this guy Morarji Desai, because he wants to be prime minister himself. He's going to come up in the next episode. And so on January 19th of 1966, Indira is made prime minister. And the India she inherits is fraught with droughts and food shortages. Inflation is rampant. There are riots all across the nation and emerging secession movements. How is she going to respond to these threats to the Indian nation?
And from what I hear, not that great.
Not
that great.
Not well.
Not great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, that was a good episode. First episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She does the best she can, I suppose. I don't want to sound condescending, but there's like a big black cloud over her legacy that we're going to talk about in the next episode.
All right. Well, that's exciting lead in. Well, part 2 coming out next Wednesday or whenever the fuck you come across this your life. John or Peter or Mary or Shirley or Kayla or Kelly or whoever you are, person out there who follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Follow us at Hard Fried History on Instagram and Facebook. Follow us at HFH Podcast on Twitter. Follow our YouTube at Hard Fried History. Also, Henry, what's your social media information?
You can find me at Henry E. Price on Instagram and just Henry Price on Facebook.
You can find me at Joshua B. Stokes on Instagram and Joshua B. Stokes on Twitter and Joshua Stokes on Facebook. We can become friends, and you can don't add my mom though. I will stab you in your neck virtually.
That's weird.
That's crazy. That's crazy, weird. Kid. That's wild, son.
All
right, guys. We'll see you next time for part 2 and the conclusion of Indira Gandhi. Boom. See you guys next time. Peace.
Peace out.